Hey, everybody. It is Micah Lieberman again coming at you from Scope. Once again, hopefully we'll see you in February in Orlando or in Barcelona in October or even in Boston in May with Scope X, which is new. Today, I have Neha Shah Londonio. She is, I'm going to read your new title because you have a new title, Clinical Trial Diversity and Community Engagement Lead at Pfizer. Hi, Neha.
Hello, Micah.
Okay, so Neha is a judge. Thank you. On Scope's annual Participant Engagement Award. And she's been working in this space for a long time. And we have all these interesting people, small companies, big companies, advocacy groups, recruitment agencies. We even have filmmakers. We had all these, you were in all these meetings, these interesting people and companies and groups with unique ways to better engage the community for clinical research, right? So, and I think it's really cool, new media, all these different things. So with that broad kind of seeing all those things happening, we're seeing all these examples. This is the world you live in at Pfizer, this enormous pharmaceutical company running tons of trials. You work across different therapeutic areas. What are some things that you are seeing in your day-to-day, especially as it relates to community engagement, that are like positives, that are things that are show that industry, not just Pfizer, but industry is listening and learning and going in new directions? Because these are the types of things we talk about at Scope. So what are some things you're seeing?
There is so much ingenuity that's happening right now. It's such an exciting time to be working and in this industry, in the work that we do in clinical trials. Frankly, I think no matter what part of where your role is and what part it touches, from soup to nuts, right? Protocol design to data capture, et cetera, actual trial conduct, or where I sit, which is kind of across everything in terms of that community engagement and clinical trial diversity. What I'm seeing is just this innovation for all kinds of solutioning, thinking about how unique ways to use AI, even going back to basics of communication, different methods, social media, really boots on the ground presence, things that you can do with EMR evaluation for patient identification, not only in reaching out to patients, but also to the healthcare professionals. All these things are just so cool in terms of what we can do as an industry to reach more patients and enrich our trials.
Yeah, and I think again, last week and the week before, we sat in a lot of really good presentations. Again, different types of groups, and some blew my mind. Right, some were more like engineering actual things. Like in one case, it was for pediatric trials, like the way they were actually engineering toys to teach the kids. I'm probably already giving it away who I'm talking about, but that was a really cool story. And then there was a group of people that were not historically from pharma or clinical research. They were media people. They were filmmakers who partnered up with a group of people from a rare disease community because they wanted to actually interview those people to better convey the living kind of how those people and those caregivers are living through that disease. And they had a bunch of investigators then partnering. This stuff, frankly, surprised me. Like some of it was coming from people who know the industry.
Mhm.
Some of our presentations were coming from people who were completely pharma naive,
Mhm.
and they were coming with new eyes, and they learned kind of some of the nuts and bolts. And I don't know, sometimes there's a negative statement. Do we get caught up in our own processes and we lose some of our creativity where we're just like executing projects, deadline? Like, how do you
I think,
balance?
yeah, it is. And we're all under immense timelines and pressure and to hit those key drivers for our trials and programs. So it's hard to stop and innovate, although across the board, CROs, sponsors alike, there is effort and investment both in time and personnel for those innovative capabilities and research. And it doesn't have to necessarily be this wave of AI that we all are talking about,
Right.
machine learning and all that, it can be as something that's as fundamental as storytelling with another lens, if you will, but it's taking time to mindfully investigate and integrate, take the time to not be risk averse and pilot things and learn new things.
Maybe you said a few things that are interesting because we saw so many talks. And I referenced a few. They might already know who I'm talking about, but some were more, roughly speaking, some were more in AI, technology, innovation, analytics, and some were, I think storytelling is a great term, right? And some were integration of both. But then you said something else, which is, how do, and this would be probably you, like, how do you at whatever it is, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, big company X, whatever they are, how do you then try to pull in some of those examples so that you are not being too risk averse? Because you do want to try both. You don't want to be, you want to say, what data do we have? How can we analyze the patient pools and figure out where more of these people are, do the obvious things? But also, how do we more deeply engage some of the community members with a more storytelling approach? These are completely different things, but you kind of need to do it all, don't you? Isn't it? Is that what you're doing? Are you constantly kind of bouncing?
I think in my world, yes. And to be a short answer, yes, it is a both and approach
Yes,
where
both
you
and
are
right.
doing the tried and true blueprint of approach based on your therapeutic area, right? Everything we do is data backed, data driven. In any strategy we're developing, from site selection to protocols development to uh, recruitment retention strategies, community engagement, all of those things are data driven. So you have things that you know are non-negotiables. This is how we need to approach this. And then you look at ways where you can innovate, where there is opportunity. And it is what we've heard at Scope in many, many discussions with key executives and senior leaders, is that there is that willingness to evaluate, how can I expand my protocol design to actually open those doors and be more inclusive? How can I evaluate things of needs of biopsies or visit schedule, right? Things like that, that we may have previously just known to be the way we would approach protocol design. How can we look at that differently with different vendors or data and site selection, things like that? So it's got both and. And so I'm fortunate enough to have leaders that see the advantage of that investment and know that that is what needs to happen in accompaniment to running your trial. It's still a lot of work, right? That one must do to pilot and assess and get that partner or vendor onboarded and all of that. It's not a small feat, but if it's worth the investment and the work, then you how else will you know other than trying, right? There's this
Right.
quote I read the other day. I think it's JP Morgan. Don't don't quote me on this, but it's something he said something like, go as far as you can see, and then once you get there, you'll like see further, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something I'm
Mm-hmm.
paraphrasing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we have to do. We have to dream and envision, see that horizon, and then build towards that, and then assess, and then keep going, right?
I think that's great. And I think you said a few things. And I think I was going to say, what advice do you have for people like you in your position? But I think you just gave it, right? You still have to do what you're doing. We all have deadlines. There's a lot of projects going, but that doesn't mean you can't also pull in that innovator and say, hey, I want to include this person, this company, this approach in our project as well, right? Don't be too risk averse. Try it and innovate. All right, that's good advice. I like that. And that's a lot of what we saw with all these kind of really cool people doing their presentations and submitting their proposals for the participant engagement award every year. I'm blown away. Cool. Well, Neha, thank you for chatting. Thank you for always being at Scope. Thank you for being a judge. And I think people will watch this, and I think there's a lot of people who have a job similar to yours, and I think it's going to be really helpful for them to hear this. So thank you.
My pleasure.